You ever ask a chatbot a question, a really simple one, and it gives you an answer that is so confident, so detailed, and just completely, utterly wrong? Yeah, you're not the only one. Today, we're going to get to the bottom of why these incredibly advanced AIs can act so strange. And the answer, it turns out, isn't really about bad code. It's about the very definition of what it means to think.
I mean, we all kind of assume that a machine, an AI, should be the peak of rational thought, right? It doesn't have emotions, it doesn't have biases, it should just be pure, cold logic. It's a computer. It's supposed to follow the rules and spit out the perfect, most optimal answer every single time. That's the dream, anyway.
But the reality is a lot weirder. AIs hallucinate facts out of thin air. They'll contradict something they just told you. One minute they're writing a beautiful poem, and the next they can't do simple math. This massive gap between what we expect and what we actually get is the mystery we're diving into.
And here's the big twist right at the start. The problem might not be that the AI is broken or irrational. The problem is that we, the people who build and use them, can't even agree on what rational really means. The concept itself is a total moving target.
Just take a look at this. It's pretty wild. If you ask an AI expert what rationality is, they'll say it's all about getting the best possible outcome. But an economist, they'll say it's about maximizing your own utility. A philosopher will tell you it's about having beliefs that are logically sound. And then you get to psychology and, well, they're literally having rationality wars over what it means. So if the smartest people in these fields can't agree, how on earth is one AI supposed to satisfy everybody?
Okay, so for our purposes, let's just boil all that complexity down to these two key ideas. On one side, you've got rational reasoning. This is all about thinking the right way, following the rules of logic to a T. Here, the process is everything. But on the other side, you have rational behavior. This is about acting in a way that gets you the best result, the best outcome, even if your thinking process was a little messy. For this one, it's the result that matters most. This difference is absolutely critical.
And you need to hold on to that difference, because this is where things get really interesting. It turns out that sometimes, to get the most rational outcome, an AI has to do something that looks totally irrational. Let's open up what the source material calls the Irrationality Toolkit.
So first tool in the box, bounded rationality. Look, in the real world, you don't have forever and you can't know everything. Just think about finding a parking spot. Are you going to circle the block for an hour trying to find the absolute #1 perfect spot? No way. You take the first one that's close enough and big enough. You're not being irrational. You're just being smart with your time and energy.
And Herbert Simon, the genius who came up with this idea, he put it perfectly. He coined this awesome word, satisfice. It's a mix of satisfy and suffice. It just means you don't always aim for the absolute maximum. You aim for something that hits a good enough level. And in a complicated world, that's often the most rational strategy you can have.
So, bounded rationality is one tool, but check out these others. Sometimes an AI will use randomness, not because it's broken, but on purpose, to explore new ideas that a person might never think of, which can lead to huge breakthroughs. Or it might get super cautious and focus on minimizing the worst-case scenario instead of trying to get the biggest win. And sometimes it just uses mental shortcuts or heuristics, just like our brains do. They're fast, they're efficient, even if they aren't 100% logical. You see? These aren't bugs, they're actually features of smart behavior.
Okay, so how does all of this theory about toolkits and rationality wars explain why your chatbot is feeding you nonsense? Well, this brings us to the heart of the matter for today's AI, something called the Generative AI Evaluation Paradox.
And here's what the paradox is in a nutshell. There is a huge, fundamental conflict between what the AI was actually built to do and what we as humans think it's doing. We're basically judging it with a completely different rulebook than the one it was trained on.
Let's break down that clash. The model's goal is dead simple. Predict the most statistically likely next word in a sentence based on all the data it's seen. That's it. That's its generative rationality. But our goal, when we ask it a question, we want truth. We want facts. We want helpful, coherent answers. We want epistemic rationality. See the problem? The AI is playing a word prediction game, and we're expecting it to be a wise philosopher.
So here's the kicker. When an AI hallucinates and makes something up, it's not necessarily failing. From its point of view, it might be succeeding perfectly at its one and only job, creating a sequence of words that looks plausible.
What we see as a crazy, irrational bug is, from the machine's perspective, the perfectly rational outcome. The source material calls this rationality entanglement, where these two completely different goals get all tangled up.
So this paradox, it leaves us staring at some huge unanswered questions that researchers are wrestling with right now. This is really the cutting edge, defining what the future of our relationship with AI is going to look like.
First off, is it even possible for one AI to be a master word predictor and a totally truthful fact checker at the same time? Or is there always a trade-off? If we make it more creative and interesting, does it have to become less accurate? We just don't know the answer to that yet.
Which leads to the next big practical problem. How do we actually get these AIs to care about the same things we do? How do we train a model not just to be plausible, but to actually optimize for things like truth and helpfulness and safety? That is the billion-dollar question in AI alignment right now. And that leaves us with one final and maybe the most profound question of them all. As these AIs become our partners, what should their job be? Should they be a purely logical guide, constantly correcting our very human biases and our mental shortcuts? Or should we design them to understand our irrationality, to adapt to it, and to work with the wonderfully messy way our brains operate? The answer to that is going to define how we think together for a very long time.